Welcome to All Villa, No Filler. Remember to subscribe to the podcast, follow us on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. This is an interview special with one of the best football broadcasters around. You'll see him on the likes of Sky and ESPN. In fact, I'm half expecting to see him turn out for Real Madrid next season alongside Kylian Mbappe. That's how often I see him around. It's Sam Tighe. Sam, welcome back to All Villa, No Filler.
Do you know what? At 6'4", I would be willing to do the dirty work to allow Killian to shine. I can be your Olivier Giroud.
Yeah.
I've got the
Wait,
beard now as well, so it helps.
yeah. You got the beard. You got to have the handsome looks of Olivier Giroud as well. You
True.
know, can you take that? So, yeah, knock it up to the big man. Your technical price, laying it down to Kylian Mbappe, and Real Madrid walk to yet another Champions League final to play Aston Villa, where no doubt Villa will eke out a 1-0 win. But well, it's transfer season for, if that's what we call it, for Aston Villa. The summer transfer window is probably going to get hot and heavy in the next few weeks, but
Well, it,
already,
it officially opens on Friday,
yeah,
so we are basically there. It is an arbitrary date, obviously. It is
yeah.
completely random, and you don't have to obey it. But yes, it's technically open tomorrow, Friday.
Also the day the Euros start, so we'll see how that develops. But basically, Douglas Luiz. I'm wearing black in mourning for the fact that we might be losing
Mm.
an absolutely brilliant midfielder who has served Villa so well for 5 years now. It looks like all the media reports say he's going to Juventus, essentially with two players coming in return in Samuel Iling-Junior and Weston McKennie. How are you feeling about the Douglas Luiz move?
So you're wearing black to mourn his loss. I'm wearing a Brazilian shirt, domestic shirt at least. I don't think he played for Gremio, but it's the only one I have to celebrate and honour his wonderful time with Villa. Because yeah, it looks an awful lot like he's going to go. It's kind of by process of elimination. It's kind of just where we ended up, isn't it? We've been talking about this almost fearfully for a couple of months now. I feel like you and I, like,
Mm.
who are Villa going to have to sell? Like, if they have to sell someone, who is it going to be? And the process of elimination always lands back at Douglas Luiz, and it's a bit of a gut wrencher. But the reality is, there's 5 or 6 players for Villa who are worth a lot of money, uh, and Luiz ticks more boxes than anybody else. Partially because he's not English, so it means that he probably does have a wider market,
Mm.
and it's just the case that as good as he is, I don't want you to misconstrue this and say that we can happily and easily replace him because he's been a big part of the club. But central midfield is easier to replace either with one player or several than it is to replace Watkins, than it is to replace Emi Martinez, than it is to replace the character of someone like Jhon McGinn and what he means to the squad.
Mm.
And also probably it's easier to replace than someone like Ezri Konsa, who people are starting to figure out is genuinely amazing.
Yeah.
And because Douglas Luiz isn't homegrown, he just seems to have that much wider market, where naturally a club like Juventus will have him on the radar, whereas with the others, maybe not so.
Yeah.
And of course, the dirty part of it is that he's been with us for so long now that he's basically paid off in FFP terms. So the cash you get for him is not you don't have to offset it against anything you've spent, which is not the case for some others. But for Consta and for Douglas Luiz, 5 years at Villa, I don't want to use the phrase, but they are essentially like academy players at this point, according to the books.
Yeah. That's true indeed. And as I say, as you said, we've been talking about it for quite a while, and it did always seem to fall back on Louise. So, I mean, replacement wise, we'll talk about McKennie and Iling-Junior in a second, but just sort of more immediately, what do you think Villa do about that? I mean, does Tielemans go back into the Louise role next season, or do you think Villa are going to have to try and find someone with his sort of technical prowess to replace him?
Yeah, so it's not the worst position to be in, is it? When you go, okay, we've lost Douglas Luiz, we need to hit the market, we need to find some solutions, need to use the money to beef up the squad. However, even if we do nothing from here, and obviously that's not an option, they need to do some stuff. But even if we do nothing from here, Yuri Tielemans is right there,
Yeah.
and you know, I think we'd all be fools to suggest that Yuri Tielemans is a better footballer than Douglas Luiz. However, the way Tielemans ended the season was really encouraging. He
Yeah.
was really, really good. In fact, when he went down with that groin injury and ended up missing a couple of key games there, including the Olympiacos first leg, I never thought that would be such a big blow, but it was. That's how much Tielemans improved over the course of the season. So right now you go, okay, well, Tielemans is the player. He sits there. That's not the worst position to be in.
Mm.
It's not like having your star striker ripped away and you've got nothing in reserve and you have to hit the market and hope that that player pans out. Already you're pretty well stocked. So perhaps the club are due some credit for foreseeing something like this. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe it's just how the cards have fallen.
Mm.
Um, but we all know that this squad is too thin regardless. So taking a midfielder out of an already too thin midfield is not good. Need to adapt, need to buy some players. And I don't know what the solution is because I don't know what they think McKennie is. You know, that the first
Mm.
question here is what do you see Weston McKennie as, Unai Emery? Because when we get a flavour for that, we'll probably be able to answer the following, the subsequent questions.
Yeah, completely. I'm with you on the McKennie one. That's I've not heard massively positive feedback from people who've watched him at Juventus, but at the same time, I think we can't rule him out just because of one poor spell at Leeds. If we were to do that, we'd be ruling out
Sure.
10 tons and tons of players. And to be fair at Juventus, he did establish himself last season and got, I think, it was 10 assists in 38 games in total, whilst not scoring. But it's quite difficult to know exactly how Emery's going to use him. Like, will he use him essentially as somebody to replace, say, a Tim Monroe with squad depth, or somebody like Leander Dendoncker, or even a Zaniolo, for instance? But what do you make of McKennie's potential arrival at Villa?
Yeah, I'm also struggling to figure out. I mean, I've got no doubt about it. Weston McKennie is a good footballer.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not interested in judging him according to his time at Leeds. And while some people may not think much of him, he's made like 83 league appearances for Juventus.
Hmm.
I mean, come on.
Yeah.
He's made more than 80 league appearances, so over 100 appearances for Juventus. I mean, they're a pretty good team.
Yeah.
And he has established himself this season, correct. The difficulty I have in projecting him is because he's played so many different roles for club and country over the last 5 or 6 years that he feels almost a bit muddled. But if you can get him back on track and you can say to him, right, I want to use you as this and only this,
Hmm.
it might just help him out. I remember when I first saw him at Schalke, he was playing holding midfield. He was actually playing as the anchor midfielder, deepest
Right.
point, taking the ball and dribbling out from deep with it, or dispossessing players and then tackling and then moving the ball forward. And he was pretty good at that. And I really did think that was his position. That he was, if not a box to box number 8, then a sort of more reserved number 6, which certainly suits Emery's shape. Obviously, over the years, then he's become at certain points way more attacking. For the USA, he quickly became an attacking midfielder because they had 3 players in the midfield. They had Yunus Musa, who was box to box. They had Tyler Adams, who was the deep lying player, and then they used Weston as much more attacking player. And obviously for Juventus, he's ended up playing wide, wing back,
Yeah.
also all sorts of. And then versatility is great.
Yeah.
But I bet you Weston McKennie at 25 years of age is sat there thinking, if Villa sign me and tell me to do and try to specialize me again, I'd take that all day long,
Hmm.
because his career has drifted ever so slightly as he's taken on more and more responsibilities and roles, and his skill set has widened, but also, I guess, become a little bit shallower in the process.
Hmm.
So I'm excited. I'm almost excited to see what Villa might do with Weston McKennie, because there's a really good footballer in there, hell of an athlete, really good footballer. Just lost his way a little bit, and it's not really his fault.
Yeah, I agree with that, and it's also versatility is the watchword. I can't help but think that with the injury crises teams seems to be facing all the time now, that
Yeah.
having versatile players is crucial. But yeah, McKennie, yeah, quite excited to see what he does, and he sort of reminds me a little bit of players that Emery has sort of got the best out of in the past, who maybe didn't shine elsewhere. Let's say like an Etienne Capoue, you maybe didn't think he'd end up becoming like a really crucial player in Villarreal's team, but Unai Emery worked on him, and look what he became there. So
Mm.
it's I could imagine Weston McKennie potentially becoming a bit of a project for Emery and actually ending up being a decent signing. We'll see. I'm going to reserve judgment and just see what happens
Yeah.
with him in pre-season, essentially. But we
I'll say
move
what
on.
I'll say one more thing on Weston actually quickly. One scout that I know, I spoke to a couple of years ago, I think when Weston was sort of not was drifting a little bit, and we just got onto the subject of it. And he's a talent evaluator I really trust. And he said one thing that was really surprising because I'd never actually noticed it. He said that he thought Weston McKennie was one of the best headers of the ball in Europe.
Okay, right.
And it's kind of stuck with me all this time. And it's one of those situations where, like, he's not the tallest player, but obviously sometimes you don't have to. It's about the leap, it's about the spring, and it's about the aggression. And I'm sure running through your head all through the summer, and running through my head all through the summer, will be Villa. How do we address the aerial issues, the set piece issues? How do we do it? His aerial win rate this year has been about just over 50%. It's pretty average. It doesn't look like much. But when attacking the ball at set pieces, usually in attacking sense, I think he is severely underrated and probably really underappreciated. And those words that scout said to me have always stuck with me.
Okay.
So look out for that and don't discount him as a potential aerial presence.
Yeah, as you say, that is very important, given the fact Villa just consistently conceding goals through that route as well. But Samuel Iling-Junior. Now, I have heard a lot of positive chat about Iling-Junior. You know, he's from uh, well, my neck of the woods, I guess. He's from Stoke Newington, which is very close to where I currently live, very Arsenal area. And he chose to go over to Juventus a couple of years ago. Um, and has since, last season had quite a decent number of appearances for them. He's 20 years of age, so a talented young English player. What do you think of him as a potential signing?
So I think he's Samuel Iling-Junior for a
Okay,
start. I think it's Iling. I've been
right.
calling him Iling, and I've got that from somewhere, and I feel like that's right, but it might be wrong.
Okay,
But I'm going to go with Iling. Um, I remember him breaking onto the scene a couple of years ago as a bit of a super sub for Juventus. He played the last 15 minutes of a Champions League game that I was watching, and I was like, who the hell is this guy coming on? Oh, he's English. Oh my God, he's brilliant. That was
right.
bang, bang, bang like that. He was so electric and explosive. I could not believe it. Um, I'd say he's probably the most explosive straight line player that I've seen since Adama Traore.
Okay.
Like in terms of that explosivity off the mark and the burst and the power that he runs with as well in a straight line means that the burst and the strength combined, he just brushes people aside. Like if he's gonna wants to knock the ball past you, he's gonna knock the ball past you, which is an amazing natural skill set to have and something you can mold and you can work with. Um, I'd say over the years he hasn't necessarily developed much in the way of like how do I put this? He doesn't have much like twist or turn, change a direction, like the sort of close footwork stuff. You know how Leon Bailey chops left, chop right,
Yeah.
and changes direction and tries to almost get the marker that he's facing to put their weight the wrong side and he goes the other way. I don't really see that with Iling-Junior. I see him going, right, I'm going to go over there now, and just runs in a straight line and gets there.
Hmm.
So I don't know if there's some development work to be done there in terms of that shorter range stuff. But
Hmm.
certainly as a left-footed, left-sided player who hugs the line, beats his man, and puts the ball in the box, I mean, there are some games that I've seen him play. He was just completely and utterly unstoppable, just
Right.
because no one can live with that burst and acceleration. So I'm actually more excited about Iling-Junior because I see him as immense potential, just waiting
Right.
to be molded. And it's really hard. I want to make this really clear to people. Like, it's really hard for young players to come into Juventus's team because Max Allegri is a bit of a tactical terrorist and doesn't really like platform his players very well. Doesn't say, right, let's dominate the ball, let's put a system in place. He's like, right, who out of you lot is going to give me a moment
Hmm.
that's going to win the game? And that's usually someone punt the ball in the box and we'll just head it in. They're pretty dreary to watch. And
Yeah.
it's traditionally been very difficult for very young players, very inexperienced players, to step into Max Allegri's teams and really shine. They've
Hmm.
got some really good young players. They've had a conveyor belt of them, really, like Fabio Moretti and Fagioli, and Iling-Junior is another one, and they've had quite a few, and they do find it really hard to stick in that team. So the fact that
Hmm.
he hasn't made the full breakthrough there, I don't think is a concern. I think
Right.
he left England for a pathway to the first team. He's done all right, and now it's time for him to come home and change scenery for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, just to even get into that first team at Juventus, as you said, with Max Allegri, there an achievement in itself to have played as much as he did. And so, do you think left back or maybe sort of the left midfield role that currently Morgan Rogers is filling, is that sort of
Yeah,
his
it's
position?
interesting, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
interesting. It's definitely a domino. which is going to cause more to fall. Villa do not really have a player like Iling-Junior unless you want to basically count Alex Moreno as that player.
Right.
Um, but I wouldn't consider Iling-Junior to be a left back. So what happened? I mean, maybe it's a project. Maybe it's in a year's time he'll be a left back,
Hmm.
or maybe it's simply a case of Emery trying to find a bit more variety in his team and saying I don't have anybody that can play left mid for
Mm.
90 minutes. Because Moreno has done a bit on the left, on just in front of Dean, hasn't he, for like 10 minutes end of games and stuff like that. But I
Yeah.
don't have anybody that I can say you're my left midfielder and you are my up and down left footer. Bailey never gets to go over there. Bailey's a different type of player anyway.
Hmm.
So again, it's just a bit of flexibility, maybe
Yeah.
something that Villa don't really have at the moment that they're adding to the team, which is cool. I think it probably does. Like if you bring Iling-Junior in and say you're my left mid and you're going to rotate with Ramsey, it probably pushes Morgan Rogers up into
Mm.
the striker position, the support striker position, the
Yeah.
position that you and I both expect him to end up in.
Yeah.
And I think it's now sooner rather than later,
Yeah.
especially if Durán goes. Because if you just consider Morgan Rogers to be Watkins' backup or partner in crime, you don't actually have to go and break the bank for another striker, even if you sell Durán.
Yeah.
Maybe this is just the natural reordering of the squad. Iling-Junior left, Rogers forward, Durán out.
Yeah. That's what I'm suspecting as well might be happening. And again, versatility and maybe even tactical flexibility as well if
Yeah.
Villa want to play a 3 and a 5 midfield. But um, you mentioned Jhon Durán there, linked away to Chelsea. I've seen a variety of figures for him. I really do think he's a player who has all the natural ability in the world. Could be a top striker, who knows one day. But as well, there's obviously some interesting quirks to his personality. Would you be sorry to see him go?
I don't think you can decline the fee on offer, man. I mean, if that's what it is, money talks, and for 25 million, I'd be a bit sorry to see him go, and I'd really wonder about whether or not Villa are making a bit of a mistake there,
Yeah.
albeit an enforced financial sale. Like, and we appreciate that. It's not a case of no, we don't want him. Goodbye.
Mhm.
Villa don't want to lose any players. I don't think really, but
Yeah.
it's just the nature of the situation they're in. So for 25, I'd be like, oh, could be giving up something good there. But I've seen some figures at 40, 42, 45. At that point, you're like, yeah, pack his bags. Just do it because well, there are quite clearly a number of reasons why Durán could go on to be an amazing footballer.
Yeah.
There are probably an equal number of reasons as to why he won't.
Yeah.
And so you play the odds, you take the money, and you reinvest in safer options and options that Unai Emery can probably trust a little bit more.
Exactly that. He does have all that ability, but he's just never going to get past Ollie Watkins. So in a way, I understand some of his frustrations if he wants to be starting all the time.
Hmm.
But at the same time, he has had a lot of game time for a player of his age in the Premier League. So yeah, 25 million I think will be low. I think 35 minimum, given the fact Chelsea seem to
Yeah.
spend big.
Also, just remember that, like, so what we talked about with Douglas Luiz and how he's basically paid off in FFP terms. So his book cost for Villa per year is very, very low, which means
Yeah.
when you get the sale in, you get the profit, and it's not really offset against much. Durán is at 18 months into a deal that costs was it like 18 million,
It was
17 million,
17-ish, yeah.
split over 5 years. He's still got 12 million on the like. So even if you sold them for 25 million, you're still offsetting the costs. Some people may not know how this works, but this is how it works. So like Villa still have quite a lot of book cost for Jhon Durán left. So
Mhm.
in order to really benefit from profit this year, the fee needs to be higher than 25. When it
Yeah.
gets to 40, that's when you're like, we've made 25 million on this, like genuinely.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it just kind of gets lost.
Yeah.
So these are the dynamics that Villa are having to consider. And you know what? It's really hard to sit here and talk about it as an outsider because we don't know like how close to the line they are.
Mm.
We have our suspicions as to what the
Yeah.
figure might be, don't we? We've got a bit of a conspiracy theory. I'll let you I'll let you present it.
Yeah, it's well, just going off the media reports, basically, it feels like Villa just have to sell, don't they? Basically, and
Well, no, we think we know how much they're under or over.
oh,
Over.
was it the 30 million that they
Yeah, it's this
it-
30 million figure that keeps coming up.
yeah, for Douglas Luiz.
I mean, I don't want to look like Charlie Day and It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia here with the crackpot Pepe Sylvia stuff, but
Yeah.
like this figure of 30
Mm,
keeps coming up. It's
yeah, it
like,
does.
how much do Villa want to sell Matty Cash for? His price tag is 30 million, apparently. How much did Villa apply to have the PSR limits raised by?
30 million.
105 to 135, 30 million. It's
Yeah.
like this, the number 30 keeps coming up. And you might look at me and think you're an absolute nutter, but based on the fact that this figure keeps coming up, I can't help but think that Villa are 20 to 30 million short,
Mm,
and that's what they're trying to find. So however possible.
yeah. Just need to build a few hotels and sell them back to ourselves, apparently.
Well, already sold Villa Park back to ourselves, so we can't really talk, can we?
Yeah, yeah. But elsewhere, yeah, another player, Matty Cash, linked to Milan,
Yep.
reportedly again, that figure 30 million.
It
Again,
won't be that. It won't be that. If he
no,
goes, it won't be that.
no, can't see Milan going that high. But you know, if I mean, were it say to be 25 million, do you think now would be the time to cash in on Cash?
Yeah. Um, again, if Villa need to make sales, I guess he's one of the players that feels the least integral.
Mm,
4 years into his time at Villa, so again, mostly paid off. Carries some value. I'm told Fonseca really, 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 really likes him, and Fonseca has now been unveiled as the AC Milan manager, so the interest is pretty legit. I don't know though, because good reporters at the Athletic are saying that they're legitimately in for Emerson Royale. Emerson Royale, they think is worth 20 million. Are Milan gonna just play Spurs and Villa off each other and take whoever falls to them at the right price?
mm,
Emerson or Cash will take either one for 18. Which one of you wants to come down? That's that sort of thing.
yeah,
Knowing that both of them want to sell Tottenham because they don't think Emerson's very good, and Villa because they may need the money. Milan ultimately are in quite a strong position there,
yeah,
and they're gonna make both clubs wait, because as far as I know, Milan's absolute priority right now is to sign Joshua Zirkzee, and the number 9 position is one that they absolutely have to address because Olivier Giroud is gone.
mm,
And until they've got a number 9 through the door and then they count their pennies and see what's left, I think Spurs and Villa are going to be sat there waiting and waiting and waiting. So
yeah,
there's a lot of things to fall down in this line of dominoes, and Villa are kind of at the wrong end of it. They're kind of waiting on a few things, and they might end up in a reverse bidding war to
yeah,
sell, to sell their own player. I don't know. It's going to be very interesting to see. But if Fonseca really likes Cash, that's a great sign.
mm.
I can't imagine he likes Emerson Royale.
No,
like I
there's
don't
not.
know what's going on there. Like,
No. And at least like Cash has performed against Fonseca's Lille this season, scored
yeah,
that goal. And I actually watched the highlights back of that game, Villa Lille at Lille. And it was always Matty Cash having every
yeah,
shot. I was like, oh, I don't
yeah.
remember that.
So the real surprise here is that no, is it an irony? I don't know. It's very strange though, because Villa fans all came away from those 2 games against Lille, and we were all in agreement that Thiago Santos, their right back, is absolutely sensational,
yeah,
and we all want to sign him.
yeah,
Um, and so the Lille manager goes to Milan, and he obviously has an opportunity here to go and sign Thiago Santos, and he
yeah.
wants the guy that we want to replace
Yeah.
with the guy he managed.
Yeah.
It's like, what are you doing? Doesn't make any
Yeah.
sense.
No, it's a weird one. Yeah, as soon as I saw the Cash links, I thought, why would he not go for Santos? It was, yeah, strange one. Yeah, and as I say, like, sometimes you see players up close who you've never seen before at Villa Park. And I remember this with Danny Parejo when he was on loan at QPR and he played against us. And I remember he just caught my eye immediately. And I was like, I'm always going to remember this name and follow his career. And then he ended up being a really great Spanish player. And the same with Santos. I'm like, I'm going to keep an eye on this guy.
Thing is, you'll always remember that performance, and you'll always think about him as well as a result. We all have those players.
Mm,
The one this year that I was just like, this guy's unreal, and I already knew he was unreal, but in the flesh is different, isn't it? Was an Iberi Eza came to Villa Park,
yeah,
and although we beat Palace, Eza was, you just can't get the ball off him.
yeah,
Can't get the ball off him whatsoever. And it even got so I pointed him out to my wife. I was like, the 10, watch him. He's very, very good. She came out of the game. Yes, excellent. The other night, England are playing. Ezra's on the pitch. He's like, oh, he's good. I was like, yeah, it's the one that you saw it in September. Oh,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, they stay
yeah.
with you.
Yeah. He is real quality, isn't he? Talking of real quality, Ross Barkley, um, 5 million quid by the sounds of it, coming in from Luton. I sort of see him as as a squad player. He did have it was kind of heartwarming to see him revitalise himself last season at Luton in a somewhat deeper role. How do you think he's going to function at Aston Villa?
Yeah, I don't know. Another one of those that feels a bit like could be any one of three things,
Hmm.
which is basically what we talked about with Weston McKennie. I feel like if you've watched Barkley over the last year and you've watched it all click for him, then you have to believe that Villa are buying him as a player that will sit in the midfield too
Yeah.
and raise the level of quality and depth in that area. Um, and so whether or not it's a case of, well, actually it's now Barkley and Tielemans sharing the Luiz role, and McKennie goes back to his Schalke roots and becomes Kamara, that sort of thing, or will Villa go and sign another one? We'll see. Obviously, the versatility is good, but I'd be really reluctant to kick Barkley out of his stride
Yeah.
because what he found over the course of the season with Luton was really special, and it came from a deep lying role. Not the deepest player, but in the midfield pivot.
Yeah.
So that's where I expect to see him feature for Villa. Although, of course, if he can, kick up the field or pop outside, great. Obviously, you do need that in a pinch.
Hmm. And yeah, for the kind of money he's coming in as well, it
It's
just
so
seems like
cheap.
just a smart, no real risk to it at all. And yeah, he showed that he can, playing deeper last season. He was a revelation really,
Yeah,
that he can cope with a intense press
yeah.
against him, which is possibly what we would need in the last 30 minutes of a game when we're 1-0 up, and he just comes in and holds the ball for us.
Yeah, or just takes off with it because he still did a bit of dribbling last season
Yeah.
for Luton, and once he's off, and he's a big lad as well. So we'll go back to the aerial stuff. Not exactly where you would naturally go to say, oh, we need to fix our aerial problems. Let's sign Ross Barkley.
Mm.
But I was listening to Paddy on for Love of Paul McGrath, and he sort of went, he's 6'2", and I was like, oh yeah,
No, no, yeah.
he's actually a big boy, and
Yeah. It's
he
weird. You
scored a
wouldn't
few.
think it.
And
Wouldn't think about him.
he scored a few headers last season as well.
Right.
Again, attacking headers from corners. So another situation where you might be adding in that area. I'm just gonna have a quick look at his aerial duel percentage. 56%. Again, not bad for a midfielder.
Yeah.
Um, I feel like Villa have got one eye on this, and they
Mm.
haven't explicitly bought players to deal with it, but they're sort of casually identifying players who will lift the level.
Yeah.
And it's not just a bunch of Alex Morenos running around in the box losing people and failing to win headers and stuff.
Yeah.
Not to dig
Um,
out Alex there, they're all like it.
yeah, completely. It was since about January, it's just been frustrating. And there's been games where it feels like we've been physically overawed, where we've been 2-0 up and teams just switch it up, go a bit
Mm.
more physical, a bit more direct, and they just seem to cause us problems. So there's definitely an issue to be solved there. And hopefully these, more physical profile players might be able to help in that regard, particularly those who can win aerial duels. But with Villa, with the rest of the transfer window, what do you think? What do you think we need to do? What's where can we improve?
So are we assuming here that Barkley, McKennie, and Iling-Junior are in?
I'm going to assume they are. Yeah.
And we're assuming that Luiz and Durán are gone?
Yeah.
Is Konsa gone? Sorry, not Konsa, Cash gone.
No, I'm going to say no on cash. Though I think if a decent bid comes in, they will say yes. I think Moreno's going to go.
Do you think so?
Yeah.
Not sure. Not sure.
Right.
Um, st- trying to sort this out hasn't actually helped me figure out what the hell Villa are going to do. What about? So I've got you asked me a question. I'm responding with six questions. Nedeljkovic, the Serbian right back,
Right.
is he a real footballer? Is he?
Yeah.
Have we got evidence that he exists? Does he
Yeah.
play?
I think he sticks around. Pre-season's well. I think we'll get a good idea of him. I think, and what Emery has in store for him. From what I've seen of him, he looks like, again, a big, physical, rangy lad who can sprint up and down that pitch with ease. He's got the Champions League experience as well. That he's played in that. He's got a decent amount of first team experience for his age. So, Yeah, I could see him sticking around next season rather than going on loan, though he is still very young.
He's 18.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean it's a big ask, isn't it, for anyone coming in like that. I think he got injured as well, didn't he? Back
yeah, he
half of
did.
last season after we signed him, so he didn't actually play that much. So you never know, he might just end up back in Serbia on loan for a bit. But all of these questions are important because we need to know the answers before we actually know what the squad looks like.
Yeah,
Because we think that they want to then move on Cameron Archer again. We think that Jhon Durán will go. Um, there seems like a chance that Diego Carlos might find a new home.
yeah,
So it's difficult to say, but Villa probably need, in order to take the next step. Actually, no. First, let's say this: we need to sign Yusuf Fofana from Monaco.
Oh, really? Okay. I've seen it. I've seen a lot of fans want him.
That's the first step. Although I'm a bit worried that he's going to start the first game for France at the Euros and suddenly he go straight beyond us. We'll have to see because obviously Chouameni and Camavinga are, well, Chouameni's, I think he's injured, but Camavinga might play. I don't know. We'll see.
Mhm.
I think we need to plug up that hole that Camara leaves. That would be one of the first things that I do.
Mhm.
I'd sort out the Luca Dean thing, which is as a backup in inverted commas left back. That wage is unsustainable. So what's
Yeah.
the solution? Felt like Villa were pretty close to selling him last summer, and then Moreno had hamstring surgery, so he didn't. What happens this time around? And then I think it's a case of, to move to the next level, Villa need to buy better players in the attacking third. It's literally as simple as that. And it sounds really dumb, but you just need better lock pickers, because when you end up in the final third for 60% of the game and a team is defending you, yes, people talk about attacking patterns of play, and of course you need combinations. You need players that understand each other and can work space. Sometimes you just need, like Kevin De Bruyne, to just put in an undefendable ball. And Villa, having made so much progress over the last couple of years, I really do think are at the stage where they just need to sign a player who picks locks. Um, Obviously, ideally, that would be Emi Buendia, but we can't really
Yeah.
count. We can't count on that.
Yeah.
So the fact that we keep getting linked to Alex Baena,
Um,
it just doesn't go away. And it,
mm,
it just, to me, it just makes all the sense in the world. You need more players, you need better players, you need lock pickers, and he is a lock picker.
yeah. Baena, obviously, at Villarreal. He used to play for Unai Emery, so there's that connection already as a young guy. And I
Yeah.
think he was one of the everybody I've spoken to who covers La Liga has spoken so highly of him. Lots of
Yeah.
assists, goals as well. So
In the Spain squad for the
yeah,
Euros as well. I don't think we'll see him much, but he's certainly in it.
yeah, very talented player, and I dare say another centre back maybe. What do you think?
Well, yeah, I mean, I personally would go down that route. I personally would sell Diego Carlos and
Same.
try to reinvest in a more aerially dominant centre back. I know I'm so boring. I keep going on about it, but I do. I even half convinced myself the other night that I'd bid for Axel Disasi just because he wins all of his aerials. And then I thought, hang on a
Right.
minute, shut up, Sam. That's doesn't want Axel Disasi. He's he's fine, but you can find someone else. I don't know what the answer is, to be honest with you, because I haven't really looked into it. But a right centre back who is very strong in the air would not go amiss.
Yeah.
And I know Esri would really like to play more centre back, but I'm not convinced we're going to see that much of it.
Yeah, I agree. And today we have Aston Villa have been linked with Tammy Abraham,
Oh, I mean
formerly of this
that would
parish.
be awesome, wouldn't it?
Yeah, he'd be a very, a player who's got all the experience in the world. And if God forbid anything happens to Ollie Watkins and someone like Tammy Abraham comes in as that striker role, you're probably thinking, all right, well, at least you've got a sort of proven
Yeah.
Premier League player going in there. Do you think Tammy would take a role as sort of a backup essentially to a Watkins? Would he do that?
Well, his stock is pretty low at the moment, unfortunately for him, and that's mostly injury related.
Yeah.
Um, but if Roma are looking to move him on, what did they pay for him in the end? Was it like 40 million or something?
It was
Probably
high. It was
something
high.
like that. Yeah, it's high, but it's not that high, is it really? And because his stock is lower than when he left, you'd imagine that 25 to 30 million would get it done. The wages might need some tinkering, but we'll see. I'd love to see that. I mean, Tammy, no Villa fan needs to hear me talk about Tammy because they all know that he's brilliant. But that incredible combination of size and speed, the ability to run in behind, but also hold up the ball, scores all types of goals. He's a really good player. Everyone loved him. Everyone was gutted when he didn't sign permanently the following year. So it's cool. I just like, how many of those loanees can we get back? Because
Yeah.
like we went up, skipped a year, and then we like, come on, Axel, come back in, lad, come on. And then
Yeah.
4 years later, is like, come on, Tammy, get the band back together. We'll get Axel back as well. Go
Yeah.
on. How many of those players at Villa are going to end up getting back in? I mean,
We've even gone back for Ross Barkley.
exactly. Technically, Ross Barkley's a returnee.
Yeah. Well,
It's
Grealish,
fantastic.
dare I say?
Uh,
Don't know, can't see that myself. I think his future might be somewhere like Los Angeles FC or
oh, come on. That's way too early for that
you
stuff.
think?
Oh,
Give it,
absolutely.
give it a year or two.
There is 5% of me that thinks that he is going to be so miffed with the Euros snub that he's going to go, I've got to go.
Hmm.
And Villa do this thing where they clear out, Durán, they clear out Carlos, clear out Cash, they sell Luiz. And like, bear in mind, this is like £100 million worth of sales, and then that gives you so much flexibility moving forward. There's a part of me that just thinks late July, Villa just bid 50 million for Grealish, and it's probably me.
Imagine.
It's just me talking myself into it because that's what I want to see.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm sure that some fans would absolutely hate to see that, given the split in the fan base. But I've just got a feeling.
Yeah.
I've got a feeling.
Well, that England call up, it didn't happen, and that's got to get to him. And the lack of game time he had last season, it's got to get to him as well. I mean, I don't know. I've spoken to a City podcast, and he doesn't think Grealish will go this summer, but I don't know.
Was that before the Euro snub?
It was before the Euro snub, so
I think it's a big deal.
it is a big deal.
I'd be so annoyed.
Yeah.
Like he's he's made 100% of European championships while wearing an Aston Villa shirt. He has made 0% of European championships while wearing a
Yeah.
Man City shirt.
Well,
These are
Watkins and Konsa are there.
these are facts.
Yeah.
Okay? Rafa
Yeah.
Benitez, these are facts.
No, he's and I think one thing that sums it up to me is when Kevin De Bruyne was really poor in the FA Cup final that they lost to United, and he came off in about the 60th minute, and Grealish didn't come on the pitch. And I thought back in the day when Grealish was at his best at Villa and hadn't been coached to just be a player who sticks to the left and just recycles the ball over and over again, I can't help but think that the Grealish of the Villa era would have been able to go into that De Bruyne role and at least have done something centrally, tried to become that creative fulcrum in the centre, which I still think he has in him.
Well, we
But
saw it off the bench against Iceland. I mean, when he wants to do it, he can do it for sure.
yeah,
The amusing thing about Eze taking his spot in the Euro squad is that Eze did it off the back of partially a really free performance against Iceland, the sort of performance that Grealish used to deliver every single week, and
yeah.
now he's been usurped by new Grealish.
Yeah.
Like, I genuinely think this is quite galling. So
Yeah.
again, maybe it's just me speaking it into existence or trying to, and I'm sure you didn't have me on here to start talking about Grealish, but it's in my head. It's in my
Yeah.
head.
The shirt's on the wall as well, just behind you. I can see it there.
Yeah.
It's that floating like a ghost. But just with this window as well, just before we wrap it up, so I did want to ask you, in recent years, transfer fees have obviously gone absolutely insane, particularly with Premier League clubs, and you could probably argue Saudi Arabian clubs in recent years as well. But just with the way the winter window went, the January window, and there wasn't really a lot of movement with Premier League clubs. Do you think we might be heading towards deflationary window in the sense that transfer fees now might start to go from players that maybe would have gone for 90 million suddenly are instead going for 60? Do you think that's where football is starting to go back to?
I think so, yeah. This might end up being a freezing cold take and a bit of a cursed prediction, but I don't think Neymar's transfer record to PSG will ever be eclipsed.
Okay.
I don't think we'll ever see a player more expensive than that. So we've hit the peak, because that was peak stupidity really at the end of the day as well. So we've hit peak stupidity, and we're all recovering. January was dry in many senses of the word, and it was because every Premier League club did their finances and went, oh my god,
Yeah,
oh my God, PSR's real, and we're either close or we're over, and we have to sell before June.
Yeah.
So that, plus the fact that the Saudis essentially opted out of the January market, made it a really, really dry place to be. So this summer, which Premier League clubs have spending power? Unclear. Particularly pre-July 1st, very unclear.
Hmm.
And then we might get a better sense of it from July. But right now, clearly everybody is like, not sure, not
Yeah.
sure, can't afford to do anything. Um, and the Saudis look like they're coming back in.
Yeah.
So at least one of those two sort of stimuli, is that the plural? One of those two stimuli is going to return, if not both of them. So it
Mhm.
will probably pick up again. But I think we're miles away from 160 to 222 million euro deals for, Mbappe and all that. I think we're miles off that. I
Yeah.
think
I think.
Real Madrid really setting their stall out and being like we're not paying that for Mbappe. We're just going to wait for him for free.
Yeah.
I think that sort of thing has a ripple effect on the market. And yeah, I I don't know. Like I keep seeing like Yusuf Fofana. It seems to be available for 20 million euros. It's absurdly cheap. Why is he
Mm.
available for that? He's a 40 million pound. Bakayoko costs 40 million.
Yeah.
That was 5 years ago. So I feel like it's coming down.
Yeah. And which makes me think of a player like Morgan Gibbs White, who I rate very highly at Nottingham Forest and think potentially would be a very good second striker at Aston Villa. I'm just putting it out there into the world. Um, and think, what would, Forest have their own PSR concerns. How much would he go for? I'm just putting that out there. If anybody from Villa is listening to this, would you be in
He's a
agreement there?
lot. He's lovely. He's a great player, isn't
He's
he?
quality. Isn't
When he runs with the ball, man, geez. I mean, he's a bit Morgan Rogers, isn't he? Or maybe I should say Morgan Rogers is a bit Morgan Gibbs White
Yeah.
in the way they just the way they cleave through
Yeah.
an opposing midfield and just bat players off them left and right. Such physical forces when they move.
Absolutely physical forces. That's exactly how I describe it. They
Yeah,
can turn very quickly in a tight space, but somehow have the power to just force you off the ball. It's
yeah,
God.
it's
Wouldn't like to play
amazing.
against them, and I hope you don't have to play against someone like that tonight in your five. Is it five side you're playing tonight?
It's actually nine aside.
No, okay.
I like to see myself as a bit of a Morgan Gibbs White on the pitch. You know.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't think anybody else does.
No, yeah. Well, given my injury record, I see myself as a Darren Anderson because I'm constantly having to do that at the moment. Pulled a muscle the other week just standing up. It was unbelievable. It's just injury. I didn't used to be injury prone, but now I'm just constantly injured. But
Age.
that's what happens as you get older. Now that I've hit 21. So yes. But Sam, obviously, it's been absolutely brilliant to have you on again. Always love chatting to you. Euros, got a prediction for it? Who's going to win it?
I've done 3,600 words for ESPN on the Euros. I'm so ready for the tournament to start. I can't believe it. I'm arguably already bored of it, and it hasn't begun.
Yeah.
But this is the life of a journalist who covers football. You spend 2 weeks talking about the Euros. And the joke of it all is that no one has any idea what's going to happen because tournament football is the most random form of football you can find, particularly on the international stage. And so we all sit there and we all make our picks and we're all certain of this and certain of that. And the reality is, the beauty of it is that no one knows anything.
Yeah.
So I think I've got France as my favourites naturally. I've got Portugal as my second favourites. I've got England in third in your sort of power ranking. Bit worried about the defense, but I'm sure we'll
Yes.
be okay. But who knows? I'm absolutely dead certain that Albania are finishing with 0 points. So
Yeah.
expect that it's that kind of certainty that's very
Yeah.
dangerous.
Yeah, completely.
I'm absolutely certain that Serbia are totally useless, and we've got them first.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely terrified.
Well,
Terrified.
if only Kosta Nedeljkovic was able to play for them this Euros. He's not in the squad, is he, this time? Is he not?
Goodness, no, surely
No,
not.
no. I think he
Surely not.
got that injury. So if he was playing, I'd tell you I'd be worried. But yeah. But England, I'm going to say Ollie Watkins scores a winner in the final, becomes a legend, gets his statue. That's what I'm dreaming of
That's a
for
very
Ollie.
Frankie Maguire prediction there.
That's my dream for Ollie. Maybe Edric Conrad to second just at the in the
Oh
90th
yeah,
minute.
yeah, yeah. Of course, of course, of
Yeah,
course. Yeah.
leave
You're not doing a
Christian.
solo podcast here, mate. When you do your 10 minutes, and you said, "We are the greatest football club the world has ever seen, and there is nothing stopping us from winning the Champions League in the next year." That's what you went. The way you end up on those tangents on your solo pods, and you end up making the most ridiculous, ludicrous, and grandiose predictions.
They
Oh
always come true.
yeah,
That's
that.
it. No, most of the time they don't. Yeah, but honestly, Sam, it's been brilliant to chat to you, and I hope to chat to you again just before the season begins, because it'd be good to look back on where we all were here and see exactly what the hell happens with Villa particularly over July and when the Euros are finished. So yeah, but Sam, where can we find you? Where can those who are listening find your work online?
So for the Euros, I'll be writing for ESPN. Transfer stuff I'm doing for Sky Sports. I'm also doing some written work for whoscored.com for the Euros as well. So those are the normal places. 90 mins, doing some live streams. I'm doing all sorts, man. It's the life of a freelancer. You say yes to everything.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that feeling. Right. Well, brilliant, Sam. Thanks again for coming on.
Cheers, buddy.